so far, knock on wood, so good. You know, we had an incredible screening, launch premiere in Martha's Vineyard where the film was shot. And it was a rock concert. I mean, it was like literally, I thought this was the Beatles, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's my little movie. Hello.
Hi, Laurent. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Are you in
Great.
Argentina? You're actually in Argentina?
I'm actually in Argentina, yes, in Buenos
Where
Aires.
Where?
Buenos Aires.
You know, it's so interesting. When I was a kid, my dad nearly had us all move to Argentina to work for a company. And I was very young. I was maybe 5 or 6. And he used to say, you know, they have sharks there. And I'm going to jump in the water. And I was so scared as a kid. And then I went to see Jaws. I was like, oh my God, I'm right to be scared. But
Okay, that was a nice relationship with Jaws and Argentina.
yeah, and so unfortunately it never worked out. The contract he had fell through and we didn't move. But I've always had this regret. Each time I see my parents, they live in France, I'm in America. You know, we always talk about the dream of Argentina and how we almost moved there and what a beautiful country it is and how much I would want to go there. So maybe one day.
You should come. You and your family should come. Argentina is beautiful and we have a beautiful country, a big country to see everything you want to see. It's here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm glad to be talking to you.
Okay, thank you, Laurent. Well, I'm going to make you some questions about this documentary because it's a new approach on Jaws that they're even different from the previous that you have done because you have worked around Spielberg works a lot of times. This documentary leads into a more emotional storytelling for me of what I saw about Jaws. What does Jaws mean to you personally? And did something change after completing this latest project for you?
Well, Jaws has meant a lot to me because, you know, when I saw the film the first time, it sort of opened my eyes even wider to my love for movies and my understanding that there was such thing as directors and that a director could be an auteur and make, you know, a great sort of summer movie, but also make a movie that had a lot of humanity in it. And so I was, you know, absolutely blown away by that movie, and I became a huge appreciator of Steven Spielberg and also of everything to do with the film itself, whether it was the music or the acting. It was based on a great best-selling book. I was fascinated, and my whole bedroom was covered with Jaws, everything. And so, you know, it was very meaningful to me when I moved to America and eventually got to meet Steven, to really try to be part of a group that always wants to preserve the legacy of great cinema. And so when this 50th anniversary was sort of, you know, approaching, we talked about it, and I was afraid that, you know, everything's been done, including by myself, or talked about, or written about. But, you know, the thing that had not really been done was the human angle. Steven says that Jaws is a people's movie, and he means it in the sense of the communal aspect of watching Jaws with people and having that sort of visceral reaction to it. But he means it also within the frame itself, where a lot of the actors in the film were locals, where he really embraced, you know, the flavor that was offered to him by Martha's Vineyard, which became Amity in the fictional story. So Jaws is really about us humans, you know, it's about us people, and it was very moving for me to sit down with Steven again and talk about this film, because you really felt he was opening up about the good, the bad, and the not so great, you know, about remembering, you know, the challenges of never having to quit, never wanting to quit, you know, but being threatened to be fired and to go through this gauntlet really of challenges that nearly, you know, could have damaged his career. I mean, that's what he says. I think he was he was going to be fine either way because he's such an artist and such a. But for sure, had the movie been a huge flop, it may have been a little more challenging to get the next film up right away. But again, I just think his perception and of the challenges that he was facing, and his perception of this being potentially something that could destroy his career, was very genuine. And I don't think he's talked about it in a way that I got him to talk about ever before, because, you know, it's easy to look back at the shark and say, oh, it wasn't working, ha ha ha, and all that stuff, and it's funny. But putting yourself in that position at the time must have been absolutely frightening. I know for a fact when I'm doing, you know, something that's like an interview, and suddenly there's a problem with sound, or there's a plane flying over, or suddenly my DP tells me, oh, I was out of focus or something. I mean, I go crazy, right? So can you imagine when you multiply this by millions of dollars every day, a crew, a story to tell, and nothing is going right? I mean, that must have been just absolutely traumatizing, and it was. And so circling around that notion of never giving up, of embracing, you know, adversity, and really making Jaws a rite of passage. When you come out of it a winner, and what a winner, you know, you can say, I can do anything, and he did.
Well, talking about personal fears, because it's a very humane documentary about that part of Jaws, did you have any personal fear during this documentary, before and also during, maybe after? I don't know, but
well, you know, I've had quite a few months of quite a few years of one film after another, and some of them have been really well received, and some others, you know, sort of mixed. And I'm also an author, and I had a book come out in last year, and some of the reviews were fantastic, and some the reviews were horrible. And so you know, I'm really, and I mean this, I'm one of those persons that I'm trying to stay away from everybody's reaction, because it's really scary. And it seems everybody has an opinion, and everybody can, and you know, the thing that's so amazing to me is how someone can say something is so amazing, and how someone can say something is so bad.
Yes, so such opposites.
And so depending on your level of confidence, you're gonna believe one or the other, right? And I tend to look more on the negative at time, and go like, you know, I disappoint people, and I disappoint myself. So it's really, really hard to launch anything, let alone something where you realize, you know, I'm telling arguably the story of one of our greatest, you know, living figures in cinema, Steven Spielberg. It's a big responsibility. I don't want to have it be a bad experience for him. I had the same fears with John Williams, because, you know, it's my mission is to really highlight them, not to do something that's not worthy. So yeah, in answer to your question, it's always scary for me at this time, you know, to release something, not knowing how the public at large or the critics are going to react. So far, knock on wood, so good. You know, we had an incredible screening, launch premiere in Martha's Vineyard, where the film was shot, and it was a rock concert. I mean, it was like literally, I thought this was the Beatles, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's my little movie, you know, and it's not because of me, it's because people genuinely love Jaws and love Steven, and they felt that his presence in my film was a love letter to their favorite movie and to their most amazing experience. So I was just a messenger, right? And I'm pleased so far, you know, that even the hardcore fans who can be, you know, very tough on you are you know, very happy with the film. So we'll see.
We'll see, but I think the overall reaction is going to be great for us here, especially in Latin America, because here we love Jaws. It's one of our favorite movies. Yeah. Well, it's Jaws, you said before, is a pillar of the pop culture, also Steven's work. So do you think this, how do you think these new materials, these new archive materials that you add in this documentary are going to maybe change or add a new perspective on this legacy for Jaws?
Well, I think it's definitely an add-on to the legacy, because the people that I interviewed, aside from Steven, obviously, and collaborators, I've never spoken about Jaws in that much of details and with that much heart before. So I think that is definitely something that's going to help, whomever is watching the new Guillermo del Toro or Jordan Peele movie, knowing that they love Jaws, may entice them to want to watch Jaws, and recognize the impact that Jaws has had on their work, So I think it was a way for me to really pass on the baton from a certain generation of filmmakers to another, and hopefully to the next one watching this documentary. I'm saying this with complete modesty, but I've had a lot of filmmakers who are very successful who said, your documentaries, because I've been doing this for a long time, but your documentaries on the great films were my film school. That's how I got to know how to make movies. And that makes me so happy, because that was really the intention. Is always, you always want your work to inspire, people and to sort of have, especially documentary. I think every film should have an educational aspect to them, And even if you're doing entertainment, look at Jaws. It's an entertaining movie, can be perceived as a horror, a thriller, whatever, but you learn so much, about so many different things. And you can take away what you will from it and become a scientist, or become a shark expert, or become a writer, whatever, director. Or just a documentary filmmaker like me. So there's a lot, that I put into those films that I think will speak, hopefully, to people who just are curious.
Well, you said something very important, is that the scientific part of Jaws, even if it's not actually implied to be that way, but a little bit it is, because it has a lot of fundamentals for sharks, and we have learned about them all this time, and our perspective of sharks has changed along the way. We don't see them the same way. We don't see them as a threat. Has your perspective about this human-shark relationship changed, especially during these documentaries with Nat Geo, that you are pushing a little extra with the Benkley's family's interviews and everything related to the conservation of sharks?
Well, I have to tell you, I had never really thought about it that way. Or it was really Wendy Benchley and Peter, who I knew, who kind of opened my eyes to that notion that sharks were massacred at the time that the film came out, and that they battled that issue, and still a lot of work needs to be done, but have been very successful in spreading the message. So I thought that was important. But to me, the shark from Jaws was always a metaphor for something we don't see, that's like the monster. As a kid, we're all afraid of the dark, so if you're swimming in the dark, that's even worse, right? But in sort of just talking about the ocean in general, if you look at the ocean as the jungle, if you're walking in the jungle of Africa and you see a lion, you don't go out and pet it, right? You don't take your arms and hope that you'll get a kiss from the lion. So you have to think the same way about sharks and the ocean. The ocean is their jungle. The big difference is that you can't see them. You know, it's like this abyss, and it can come, you know, and you can't see them. So there is no difference between a lion and a shark, really, you know, except the element in which they live. So that was the way that I've sort of rationalized maybe my fear of the ocean, if you will, or my anxiety about sharks. But you know, I just hope that this little sliver of discussion we have in my film will open up a bigger debate about the function and the responsibility that filmmakers and authors have toward their subject, and in this case, you know, was turned into a beautiful, you know, act of saving the ocean.
Okay, Laurent, thank you. Just a really last question and a quick one. Favorite scene from Jaws for you?
Well, my favorite scene is the opening scene, because if you can grab an audience that way, you are in, and you know, if you can have those type of emotions within the first 5 minutes of a movie, then you keep going like, what's next? And I think there are very few directors who manage to grab you into a story in the way that Steven does. And you know, Hitchcock was a master at doing that too, and Brian De Palma and Scorsese, all those great filmmakers, you know, can grab you. But I think this opening scene in Jaws is definitely an invitation to the dance, and a dance that's gonna hopefully last, you know, the next 2 hours, and it does.
Well, Laurent, thank you so much. I love the documentary. Really, I love it. It was really amazing to watch.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Have a great, beautiful summer.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.